So, that brings me to the beginning of my story today. About 30 years ago, before I ever even heard of unity or didn't understand what metaphysical really meant, I was present at an architectural presentation. This was an architectural firm that was presenting a new build project to a corporation. It was going to be a new office building. The corporation hadn't made up their minds yet what firm they were going to go with. But what impressed me, and I still remember this to this day, was the architects, as they were looking at the small-scale model that they had of this building, they were using the present tense. This building is. Here your employees are. The landscape is. It was never will be, can be, will, would, might be. It was is. And I stood there and I thought, that architect, for him, that building already existed. In fact, now I don't know if that corporation actually went with that particular firm that I observed, but I left that presentation certain that that building was going to be built, if not for that company, for another company, because the architect knew that that building existed. So I also have been reading a lot lately of Neville Goddard's work. And if you aren't familiar with Neville Goddard, I would suggest you look him up online. He has some, actually, a lot of his stuff is free online. But this is from his book, The Law and the Promise. And I think it's really profound. He says, what makes a present tense impression so objectively real is the individual's imagination functioning in it and thinking from it, whereas in memory image or as a wish, the individual's imagination is not functioning in it and thinking from it, but is functioning out of it and thinking of it. So, in other words, imagining, like the architect, imagining himself in that building and thinking from the position of that building instead of thinking about it. So, placing oneself in the imagination. Then he goes on to say, therefore it is the height of folly to expect the wish be realized by the mere passage of time. So, sitting around and having an intention and not actually following through with it, according to Neville, isn't going to do us much good. So here's my Unity story. I joined Unity of Columbus, Ohio in 1996, and like so many others have said, it felt like coming home. It was a relief to find so many like-minded individuals. And at that time, my life was going really well. I had a great job that I planned to keep until I retired in 2010, at age 67. I was contributing a hefty amount to the company 401k plan, and I had a little money-making sideline selling vintage modern furniture at a couple of antique malls. In fact, I had been talking to a friend about the possibility of the two of us opening a store after I retired in 2010. That sounded like a pretty good idea. I was making new friends at Unity, learning about all that metaphysical stuff, and life was good. Life was good. What could go wrong? In 1997, the company I worked for was bought out by Citicorp. They started eliminating positions, but they didn't eliminate mine. I breathed, I was safe, I breathed easy. However, I started thinking maybe I should think about that vintage shop sooner rather than later, just in case. So I began, but it seemed like it was an overwhelming kind of thing. I had never owned a business before. I didn't know anything about retail, so it seemed kind of overwhelming. Along about that time, a a psychologist at Unity offered a workshop called "What is Your Calling?" I thought, how fortuitous. So I signed up right away, and the workshop consisted of 4 hours, and for the first 3 hours, it was a PowerPoint presentation giving information about career choices and likes and dislikes. And then that was followed by writing on the information, and then small group discussion and meditation. That was the first 3 hours. The final hour was writing and meditation for about 45 minutes, and the meditation was to begin with the words, "I am." That was kind of like a mantra for the meditation, and then whatever words or symbols would come up, that was going to be our affirmation, and then we could write about what the meaning of that was in order to determine our calling. So the symbol that appeared to me was a mirror. My affirmation was, "I am a mirror." So after more contemplation on the meaning of that affirmation, I knew I should choose a career in either photography or psychology. I had been taking photography classes, and I had been running around all over town